Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Welcome to our, I'm going to call it our TED Talk because that's what it feels like. But my name is Alessa Berg. I work for HMH as an associate learning architect in the K-6 reading department, which is basically a fancy way of saying that I'm an editor for K-6 reading programs. My implementation plan is about developing a blended learning curriculum starting with K-6 reading, but using it as a model for K-6 in other subject areas as well. And so my publication for 5317 is why I feel like it is incumbent upon the big publishers to bring the blended learning movement to the mainstream classroom, because I feel that teachers, especially the ones that are passionate about blended learning, they just don't have enough time or resources to get their feet on the ground and make it a grassroots effort from the bottom up. I think it needs to come from the top down. And I feel like that's why my company exists. So that's me. Who wants to introduce themselves next?
I'm Margie Mead. I'm a fourth grade teacher in Highland Park and in the center of Dallas. I'm team lead. I would love to, I wish my district would hire you guys actually, because it's an old school district. I shouldn't say old school district, but they're stuck in their ways. Like, it's hard. Change is not, especially with technology, they're not up to date with it at all. And it's a really affluent district, but I'm doing the blended learning because I think whole group teaching is like out the window, I guess. Yeah. I shouldn't say out the window. Like, it's not effective. It's not efficient. Like,
it's outdated. Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Okay, my name is Tayler Burks. I work for A-Leaf ISD. I am a 6th grade STEM teacher, so I teach math, science, and social studies. My innovation plan is to come up with a blended learning course for teachers that helps teachers incorporate blended learning to their daily curriculum. I just find it hard. We'll just kind of walk around looking at my peers and my colleagues' work. A lot of teachers do not know how to effectively implement blended learning. So I just want to be able to provide that professional development that kind of helps them, step by step of what to do. How does it look like for a blended learning class? And as far as my podcast for 5317, not my podcast, my publishing article, I would like to kind of talk about what is blended learning and why is it beneficial to start implementing for our students.
Awesome. I'm Desiree Masters. I am a high school STEM teacher in Dunlap, Illinois. So I teach this year geometry and engineering courses. And I am working on my implementation plan to bring blended learning to the math department at my school. Kind of what you ladies have already touched on. Whole group instruction is really an outdated practice at this point. And I think a lot of it has to do with just how much gaps we're seeing with students, in the classroom these days, where some students are always ready to move ahead. They're always advancing. Some students need us to help fill in some gaps in their understanding. And blended learning just offers that choice element where kids can move at the pace that works for them. But like you said, Alessa, like, it's really hard to find that time in the whirlwind, if you will, to really develop all of that blended learning from the ground up. I have a lot of teachers in my district and in my school who are kind of old school, they're close to retirement. They've been doing this a long time. And so trying to learn a new strategy and learn a new skill, in their last year or two of teaching is a really hard battle for them, and then combine that with the fact that, like, we just don't have a lot of planning time, right? Like, we have a ton of stuff to do and not enough time to do it. Teachers don't have the time to develop all those strategies. And so my implementation plan has really been focusing on finding a way to use the time that we have in our day, our time that we have built into our week to bite off a bite-sized chunk and show the teachers that, you know, you really can do this. It really is something that you can approach, and let them see and experience the benefits of blended learning firsthand.
Awesome. So I guess that's a good segue to our first question. What is your definition of blended learning, and what would the perfect or ideal blended learning curriculum or classroom look like to you? And anybody can answer that.
I'll go. I really like the idea of station rotations and only seeing groups and small, like teaching in small groups, because it helps build the relationships with the kids. It helps when they're not with you. If there's a good online learning platform, giving them like the ownership over their own learning and teaching them that they're the ones that are, so they're learning for them. Teaching, does that make sense? I'm not teaching them, like I am their teacher, which I think that needs to change. Maybe we need to be called the guides on the side.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea of station rotations and just small group teaching only.
Would you pair that with like a flipped classroom style model where videos are the homework and they come home and the station rotation is the practice?
I would love that. I do like that idea, but my district, they're resistant to big changes.
Right.
I think it's going to stay in the classroom, but they could watch the video at another station before they come to me. Like,
right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Margie. I'm actually kind of working that in slowly with some of my courses right now. So there's online instructional video that's asynchronous. They can watch it whenever they want to. And then there is practice that they can do either independently or with partners, you know, in small groups or whatever. And then I'm there as a supplement. And like my biggest phrase in the last couple of years to my students have been like, y'all, you don't need me to learn. Like, you're bright kids, you can figure it out. And if I can, they're like, but you gave us the questions that we answered that helped us figure it out. I'm like, yeah, I guided you, but I don't need to be at the front of the room talking. Like, that doesn't need to be me. And so I found myself like trying to show them and help build that self-efficacy and that confidence. Like, you can do this. Like, you can do this. Like, we know that you can learn from a video. You learn so much from videos. So that really allows me to like maximize, you know, my efforts in like the place that they need me the most. Right. So that small group piece becomes like chef's kiss, right? Like, because it's like I can do what really needs to be done. And I don't need to go over the basics of the material, that definition piece or whatever that they can pick up from the video. Now I can get into the nuance. I can individualize this little element, you know, to help that kid who's struggling or to push that kid who's advanced or whatever the case may be. So I'm with you. I really like the station rotations quite a bit. And then, you know, that element of self-paced choice in there as well. For me, that's like the perfect combination.
Same.
Yes, I definitely agree with both of you guys, Margie and Desiree. I've currently been implementing the blended learning into my classroom since October, like officially. And each day I implement it, I learn more and more things that I am expecting to see as a teacher. When I walk into a blended learning classroom, I like to see the kids collaborating more with each other. And that's kind of the biggest piece that I really push with my students, because like you said, Desiree, you guys really don't need me. Like, everything you need as far as sixth grade curriculum for, you know, ALEAF ISD, it's in their resources. It's really like step by step by step. But I just tell them it just involves you, you know, reading more. So I kind of push them collaborating with each other and take turns reading, ask these questions. If you are talking to your peers and y'all come up to something that you don't understand, go to another group, ask them. If you go from 3 people and they don't know, then come to me. That lets me know that you're really trying to collaborate and really trying to, you know, blend and learn together. And that's what I feel like a blended learning classroom is. You walk in, you see the student collaboration, you see the teacher working with small groups, you see digital learning, you see book learning resources. And that's just really what I would like to see in all classes, instead of teachers just kind of like sitting in class, oh, this, taking notes. No, it's kind of really individualized. It's whatever the learner feels that they need to learn and how they learn. That's how the learning environment should be definitely set up.
Yeah, I
So
totally agree with
when,
all of you. Go ahead,
go
Desiree.
ahead, Alyssa, sorry. No, go.
I was going to say, I agree with all of that because I also think that small group teaching is kind of the wave of the future because especially with like, I hate to mention it, but in this post-pandemic era, like it
Mhm.
would have been so much easier if teachers could say, okay, I already have these small groups set. I don't have to meet with my whole class in a Zoom meeting every week. I can meet with this group on Monday and know exactly what I need to teach these guys to get them the rest of the week. I can meet with my advanced kids on Thursday because I know they probably did the work themselves the week. They're just going to be asking clarifying questions, whereas my Monday kids really need to be taught. Like that kind of stuff I think is the wave of the future, and you can totally implement that in a real classroom too, not just virtual. And I feel like a blended learning curriculum frees up teachers to have more time because, as we all know, you are one of the only positions that has to do more work to miss work because you can't get your work done during work because you're actually doing your work. And so it's like giving you guys time back would be just fantastic. And so I agree. I think small groups are great. I think a flipped classroom model, as difficult as a lot of districts will find it to like, they won't grasp it right away. I think that that's where we need to head. I really do.
I definitely,
So
I totally agree.
I was kind of wondering, like, we all kind of were talking about the emphasis of the small group part, but then Tayler, you mentioned the digital piece, and like we alluded to like videos and the flipped part. So, is blended learning only like the way that you see it? How do you see technology playing into that? Because could it be just that it's videos, or is it something else as well? I'm kind of curious. I know where I am on that, but I'm kind of curious where you guys.
I think that's a great question. I think videos would probably play a major role because, of course, you have to take the teacher away from the teacher part in order to make it truly blended. But as we've talked about in several of our classes, if the technology is not meaningful, does it really matter? And so for my plan, I would love it if my company could partner with things like Kahoot or quizzes or Picto, like the smartboard applications where all of that is embedded in their learning management system. And so any piece of technology that you add, it's meaningful. It means something. You're not just brain pop is no longer just, well, we're doing brain pop because the sub is here, or like I just need you to do busy work because I didn't have time to plan this week. And so I can see interactive games, I can see interactive assignments. I would love it if I know this would be huge, but like a Google partnership or something like a Google Suite where a teacher didn't have to constantly download something, upload something to Google Slides, re-download it, share it, and like have to go to 4 different places to do everything they want to do. Like, I think that is where we need to go, like a learning management system that truly provides everything that a teacher needs for a blended learning classroom: the assignments, the grade book, the attendance, the data, all of that. So
That would be a teacher's dream.
Yeah.
Right. And same,
Please,
I'm
one
gonna
box,
agree, well,
one
yes,
place.
exactly. I'm gonna agree with Alyssa as well. For me, I take the technology like a extra teacher in the classroom.
Same.
I tell my students all the time, like, hey, the questions you ask me, you can ask Google. You can ask Google, and Google will literally give you pictures. They would give you websites. They would give you videos. They would give you so much that they can even give you games. They give you a bit of everything. So I feel like that speaks to the students. Like, what if a student likes to learn by games? Well, if you search in your question, there's a game for you to play. And so while you're playing that game, you're learning. Whereas if you just ask me, I'm just going to ask you another question and get you thinking. And that's what I tell the kids all the time. So if you come to me and you ask me questions, I'm just going to get you questions. I'm going to ask you more questions and get you thinking. So for digital learning to play a part into the blended learning, it's my fun teacher, I guess you would say. The fun teacher who's going to actually give you the answer, because the real teacher is just going to keep questioning you until you come up with the answer.
which is what a good teacher does, right,
Yes,
Tayler?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
and
Facilitate,
that's the thing.
facilitate the learning.
That's
Yeah.
it. You should be who they go to get those deeper analytical, critical thinking questions. The internet should be
Absolutely.
where they go to get the dates and the
The
times
direct
and
answers,
yes.
absolutely.
Yep. That's what I said. I told my students, I said, I really think I need to change my business card. I need to erase the teacher under it. And I just need to put STEM learning facilitator.
Yeah.
Done. Right. Like, because I told them, I was like, I want to put in the technology pieces that, like you said, are meaningful. But like, especially like when it comes to like the curriculum that my district is using now, which we've had for 7-8 years, is that like there are no digital activities that come with this curriculum. So anytime my kids are doing anything digital in my class, it's because either I invented it or I went and found it somewhere else and pulled it in and modified it to make it work for us. And like, I feel like with every kind of curriculum that I have been exposed to, there are great learning pieces out there that can bring in the technology in a meaningful way. And at the same time though, like it's all that extra work on the part of the teacher. So like Alyssa, when you're saying like, I want to put it all together, like, yes, and then sell it to my district, please.
Yeah, I know.
Please.
Sell it to mine too. Or
know?
let me bring me in on your team, and I will help create it and sell it.
Please.
Yes. That is goal number one, because we get so many teachers who, we have a Facebook group for our company that, well, it's for teachers who use our company's products. And I can't tell you how many teachers post on there saying, hey, here's a Google slide of all of the resources you need to teach the reading program. It took me 6.5 hours, so I just thought that I would share. And I'm like, where did this teacher, like, where did she get this 6.5 hours? And this was for one module. We have 12 modules in our program. Like, that's ridiculous. She shouldn't have to be doing that. And the PowerPoints are great and they're user friendly, and she's pulled things from a bunch of different places. But like, no teacher should be spending their weekends doing that. Like, that's just not, because she's not getting paid to do that.
Summer.
So yeah,
that's my summer. That's what I do in the summer. I literally took a week this summer to take one of my units and make it a blended like unit. And so every day I had the kids break up into small groups and do a station rotation. It was for my pilot for my implementation plan. And it took an entire week this summer.
Right.
Getting it
and
all.
that's just one unit.
And that's just one.
Just
and I have 13.
Yeah.
yeah. So what do y'all think are some of the biggest challenges you would face in trying to implement this blended learning mindset into your school or your classroom even?
Mine is going to be the school board doesn't get along with the administration. Like, and we're a district that doesn't get a lot of funding from the state because of property taxes. We're one of the, I don't know if you heard about the Robin Hood, the penny effect or whatever. Still don't quite understand it, but our PTA pays for almost everything that we get. So none of our elementary schools have the same resources. We're all different, and they don't ask teachers what we want, and they don't like get any student surveys. Like, they don't get any student input. Like, do you like this? Like, I feel like they should throw a program in, like an online platform, into a classroom for a month or 2 months, and then get some feedback from the kids. Was it fun? Did they like it? Like, was it engaging? But they don't do that. Like, oh, nope, this is what we're using next year.
That's tough. And it's a fight you as a teacher shouldn't be fighting, right? Like, it's not your fault that the school board doesn't get along with that. Like, that's where I think we should come in. But anyway.
I do. Yes, I know.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. Well, from my perspective, it's just really just having enough technology to go around. With my district right now, we're getting an influx of students, and so we started off with enough computers for everybody, but since new students are constantly coming in, now we don't have enough. And so just trying to share computers, and this is like 30 computers shared between 2 classes that each have 25 students or more. So that's 50 students and 30 computers. So both teachers are doing digital work. It's like, okay, now we have to choose who gets the computer and who don't. So that's the biggest thing right now as far as implementing blended learning. Teachers might just get discouraged and say, well, we don't have enough technology anyway. So that's a no.
Yeah, because that would be hard to keep it consistent. Like, yeah, it's hard.
And you can't rely on kids to bring their own if they have them from home, because then you bring in an equity issue.
Right.
So
Yeah, that too. And then, if they do have cell phones, not all programs work on cell phones. It's a little bitty screen. It's easy to get distracted on cell phones. That's a lot of things,
Yeah,
Yep.
for sure. I fight that too. The other thing I think that I struggle with when I did my pilot in the fall is my students aren't prepared for it. The structure of blended learning, of not having the teacher in the front of the room all hour, the teacher not just copy and pasting, right? The students in my kids in my district, what I faced this year was my students were not prepared to do any of those critical thinking skills, right? They were like, we want you to show us exactly what we're going to have to do on the homework, and then we're going to do our homework, and it's going to be the exact same thing that you just showed us how to do. And there can't be a deviation in the type of question that we're asked, and there can't be a deviation. And then in the way we're using the material, like, I got to be shown exactly how to do it, and I want you at the board to show me. Yeah. And so I told my kids, I'm like, this is going to be a challenge for you because I'm not going to do it. And now, after having me for 6 months, I think that they're at the point that we're going to do another blended learning pilot here in the next quarter. And I think that they're at the point now that they're in a much better place to handle that kind of structure and change in structure than they were at the beginning. So we'll see how it goes. But that's been our biggest struggle. It's like the kids just aren't prepared for the structure change.
So that's a good segue into this course, this whole program. And, they talk about the CSLE plus COVA approach, which is creating significant learning environments and choice, ownership, voice, and authentic learning opportunities. And I guess I've done a lot of thinking around how blended learning connects to both of those things and why it's such a good catalyst for fostering both of those things. And I'll just speak for my vision. I've always focused on the COVA part because I feel like in my role, I can't do the CSLE part. Like, that is on the role of the teacher in the classroom, but I can provide the curriculum and the products and the games and, everything they need to have choice, ownership, and voice over how they implement that learning environment. And I'm a big proponent of choice and ownership and voice. My learning manifesto, my learning philosophy is all about curiosity and inquisitiveness. Like, I've always loved to learn, and I think questioning and just always asking why is the ground and the framework for being a lifelong learner. And I feel like blended learning offers the best opportunity for that, because you can provide so many different types of resources to get kids thinking in many different ways. And it allows them choice in how they submit things and how they complete things, and they are given ownership of all of that. And I feel like that's been a big problem too, is when you have, a boring basal curriculum, they don't feel like they own anything. They have no investment in that material whatsoever. So I'm just interested in what your thoughts are the connection between blended learning and the CSLE plus COVA approach.
I think with blended learning, that technology piece, the platform, having a good online platform that gives them immediate feedback and also shows them their scores and like them knowing where they should be, like, for instance, like for their reading levels, like where a fourth grader should be. And just that, I feel like that gives them ownership. My students, we don't have a good online reading platform, but my kids, I've given them I've made a spreadsheet, but like a way of tracking their reading scores until we can get an online reading program. But so they know where they're at and where they should be as a natural reading fourth grader, or I shouldn't say that, but like just so they can see their growth and how they're going to push themselves. But now I just like went off. I totally forgot what you're asking. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just how that connects to how COVA connects to blended learning. You've pretty much touched on it.
Yeah, and it's the choice part too. The choice part is the big thing. That's a big thing. My kids love choice. Being able to decide if they want to get on an online thing, or if they want to do something with a partner, if they want to work by themselves, or choice is huge to me. And I feel like that's for us too as learners. Like, I like choice. I don't like being shoved, I don't like being told you're doing this, you're going to learn this.
Right.
I will say, like, though, with this program in particular, I think I felt it a lot in the first few courses. Like, it was like, okay, what are you going to do? And I'm like, whatever you tell me to, Yoda. Right? Like, I will do whatever you tell me to, Yoda. And they're like, no, I'm not going to tell you. You're your own Yoda. And it's like, I can't do that. So I related a lot when I saw that struggle in my students too, because I'm like, I get it, so I put out a project for my students when I did my blended learning pilot. Their only assessment was a summative assessment at the end, and I called it the Learner Showcase. And they're like, what? And I was like, show me what you learned. That's it. That was the objective. Show me what you learned. You can do and any way you think is appropriate. You can write a story, you can make a song, you can make up your own game, you can do a PowerPoint presentation, you can do a website. Show me what you learned. That was, and some of them were like, but I don't know what you want. And I think that for the learners, like, that is a big shift. So choice for me is big with blended learning, because I think that it opens the doors to let your kids learn not only how they want to learn, but also at a pace that they want to learn. Because, like, I know when I do, like, my classroom and the way it's set up with the blended learning right now is the kids can kind of work ahead of me. So we all kind of start the unit and end the unit on the same day. But what happens in those 3 weeks is kind of up to the kid. So if they slack off for a week because they had other stuff on their plate, fine. If they work on one section a day, fine. If they work, I have kids who will get all the work done for the whole unit in 3 days, and then they will, like, just slowly study for the test the rest of the week or 2 weeks or whatever. And I think giving students the opportunity to kind of choose, do they want to front load the information? Do they want to, do they have to put it off for something else? That has really allowed some of my students to kind of bloom and blossom in, like, that control element. So I think that blended learning really, as a teacher, gives you an opportunity to kind of open the door for kids to have more choice in and ownership in how they, not only like how they learn, but also how fast they learn, right? So if they struggle with something, they can hang out for a day or two on it and really work it out. Whereas if it's teacher-led instruction that's always driven by my time schedule, then it really turns into a nope, we don't have time to go over that again because we have to move on to this new thing. So I've really enjoyed that aspect of incorporating the blended learning.
Yep, I agree with both of you ladies. Choice, ownership, voice, all of it. Again, just implementing the whole blended learning to the classroom. I like that I involve the students with the whole process, and I kind of, told them what's going to happen. I'm like, hey, you get to choose how you want to learn this classroom. We made a little contract and said you can work with your friends, you can work with me, you can work by yourself. With each unit, we have a certain amount of days to learn this information. We have checkpoints here and there, but how you learn is you. It's your path. You are the learner, I'm the helper. And so I think that's the biggest approach, or the biggest idea of COVA them implementing into the blended learning. The kids get to choose. And like you said, some kids are not used to choosing. They don't understand, oh, wow, I get to choose. Like, I don't have to sit here and listen to my teacher. I can sit here
Right.
and play a game instead, or I can sit here and watch YouTube, or, and I tell them it's fine. I'm like, you probably don't like the way I teach. That is totally fine. There's several teachers online that teach the way that you would like to be teaching. Being that I teach bilingual students, I have every kid in my classroom speaks another language other than English. And I think that is so cool, and I'm like, if you don't understand something that I'm saying in English, they have Korean teachers, they have Persian teachers, they have Spanish teachers, all online. And that way you can find a teacher that speaks, your primary language, and you can learn from them. And that to me is like cool. Like that, I didn't have
Yeah.
that coming up. Like I had that one teacher that I had to listen to, but these
And if
kids,
you
they
didn't
have a
learn the
lot.
way that she taught, you were pretty
Yeah.
much just done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I tell them, I say, and with a test, I tell them, okay, if anything, the only thing that's going to look the same for everybody is this test, because we have to take this test because you're in this district and this district provides this
Yep.
test. However, I will give you another version or another way of showing me what you learned. And like you said, Desiree, you can do a poem, you can do a little project, you can do a little rap, whatever you want, just to show me. You can do a PowerPoint. It's all on you. It's your learning. I'm just here to see how you're learning, how you're progressing. Are you hitting these points? If you are, kudos to you.
Yep.
You're doing what you're supposed to do. And I let
Yep.
them know what you're doing now, you're going to be doing in college. So you're already there. You're already there. This is what they do in college. Yep. This is what we're practicing for college.
Taylor, you said you
think-
teach middle school, or are you high school?
I teach, it's an intermediate. So we're technically considered in like an upper level elementary school, but it's 6th grade. So
Okay.
yeah.
I think it's so interesting to me that Margie said her kids love choice, but Desiree started off by saying her kids struggle with choice. And Taylor, yours are kind of on, you have a pretty decent mix. And I just think, like, is that a generational thing? Like, why are the elementary kids so much more open to, like, yeah, let me choose? Like, is it because they haven't been indoctrinated into this awful traditional public
Yeah.
school system yet?
I truly
Or-
think that. I
Yeah.
think that because I feel like
I do.
my 4th graders, their last real school year was 1st
yeah,
grade.
4th grade.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
And it's almost like they kind of got a clean slate. They do struggle though when I do. I'm like, you guys have to figure it out. They come to me like I do feel like they're 2nd graders. Like, help me. I don't know how to, I don't know what this was asking me. I was like, do you want me to tell you the answer? Because I couldn't do that, but I want you guys to figure it out. Because they're always in partnerships. Like, they're always working with their friends when it's independent, unless they're being tested. But I'm like, I can tell you the answer, but I know it already. Like, that's not going to teach you anything. And I'm like, go struggle a little bit. And I've never, up until this class or this program, I haven't been that type of teacher. And I've listened to them more too. I'm listening to them struggling and talking, and I'm like, oh, I am way more hands off this year than I've ever been.
I've always been that way. And even more so
That's
now. The kids come up to me and they're like, this is hard. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm like, did you know? And this is how I tell my high schoolers. I'm like, did you know that you can do hard things?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
okay if it's hard.
Yeah.
You can
Yes.
do it.
Yes.
And like, and then when they get really worked up, because you know how high schoolers get really worked up. And then I go off on like, hey, you guys, like, if you just went to the gym and you lifted the same 5-pound weight doing the same arm exercise every single day, what would happen? And they're like, well, you get a little stronger at first. I'm like, oh yeah. And they're like, yeah. And I said, and then what? And they said, nothing. And I was like, right, nothing. And I was like, so if you come to this class and you do the same little 5-pound effort every single day, it's going to improve a little bit, right? I was like, but if I don't ever give you a more challenging weight, if I don't ever let you struggle with something that's a little outside your wheelhouse, are you ever growing in that skill? No.
Nope.
And I think that the blended learning structure and the COVA really lets you put them in that space where it's like, hey, like, you can do hard things, you can do this, and it's okay to know that I know the answer and that you hang out and build the skill on developing that answer, right? Like, because you're never going to learn how to do it if you don't let yourself struggle in those hard moments for a few minutes. And I think that as a teacher, like, that's the balance, right? It's like, how long is good? What kind of time under tension is the right time under tension for each student, right? And that's where our expertise comes in. But I do think that with the blended learning, like, it gives you that and like you said, like you get to know your kids more. I think Margie, you said that, like you, in the
Yeah.
small group setting, like you get to know your kids better and you get to build that better with them, like those relational pieces better. And so it really does lead to a more significant learning environment. Like it sounds so cheesy, but like it truly is. Like my kids are in small groups, so when I sit down at that table, there's nowhere to hide. I'm talking to all of them, right? Because there's only 5 or 6 at the table at a time, and so you're hearing all of them. You're listening to their struggles, and so you really do get that more relational piece. And then they have more buy-in because they know you know their name, they know you know where they are, and then on top of it, like they know that they have choice in this thing, right? Like they're buying in because they're like, it's mine now.
Yeah.
And it's a
More
slow
comfortable
change.
sitting there with us.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's a slow change, but it's a good one, right? Like,
Right. Exactly. And as far as my kids, my students, their last real school year was 4th grade. And so that's why my kids seem like yay and know about it, because now they're in 6th grade. It's like, oh, we're a little grown now. But so yes, oh, my teacher gave me the option to sit with my friends. So yes, I'm going to sit with my friends, but at the same time, they're like, okay, wait, I'm sitting with my friends, but I still have to learn. And so,
And I know I'm
like,
disappointing my teacher.
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit.
So it's like, I get to, but I'm with my friends, but I'm learning. So do I go talk to her? They're more open to the experiment of you know, being able to have their choice. And again, I'm very, I want to say I'm very transparent with my students, and I let them know. I'm like, hey, I'm telling you, this is, I kind of mentally prepare them, I guess. This is how it's going to look. And when I introduce them to it, we're going to try it. We talk about it. Well, how did y'all feel about this? They're like, oh, we like it. I say, okay, well, we're going to continue. We're going to try it again for another unit and another unit and another unit. This time, what can you approve? Not me, or even with myself. How else can I help you more? You know, and because I'm just giving them those little options in a more mature way, they're kind of approaching it more in a mature way. And that's what I like. And I guess that's why they're more like this about it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
that
all of this is a testament to the fact that this blended learning is also a lesson in having the growth mindset a lot of times too. Like, and that's one thing I appreciate about it, and I'll have to bring to my organization just when we try to implement this, because I have been at my company 6 years now, and we celebrate anniversaries for people who have been there 20, 25, 30 years, like every month. And so there's quite a bit of dragging feet and like, oh, we can't do this because this is not how this is going to go. And it's like, well, no, like we have to have a growth mindset about implementing this program, creating this type of curriculum. And if we live and breathe that growth mindset, we can make sure that that is present in this program. And then the students and the teachers will also have a growth mindset about being open to the change. Let's see how, like, it might start off really hard, but if we just keep plugging away, it will click, it will happen. Like, we can make things work. And that's one thing I've really appreciated about this program in general, is just reminding myself, like to Desiree's point, it's okay to struggle sometimes. Comfortable struggle is good. And knowing that you have a group of people or a professor or a teacher to go to when the struggle really does get real. It's like, okay, no, like this isn't fun struggle anymore. This is like not, this is hard struggle. Then I think that's good. And I think that's the role the teacher is going to start to play in the future, is like, okay, like we're your little life raft when really the current's really strong. But if you're just having to swim a little harder, like that's okay. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you're going to be better for it. You're going to be so much
That's
better for it.
Right. I laugh because I tell my kids all the time at the beginning of the year, I start off with, you guys are going to struggle in this classroom, and it's okay. And I let them know. And so when a student is like asking questions, I just sit there and look at them. And the kids are like, you're not going to answer her question? I'm like, no. I said, she's struggling. And I say, and everybody's looking at me, I'm like, just wait. And then as I'm waiting, then the student will answer, oh, I just have to do this. And I'm like, see what happened through her struggle. She learned how to do this. It's okay to struggle. Do not be afraid of that struggle. That struggle means you're just preparing and building your brain to learn something. And that's what you just got to give them time. So my kids,
Yeah.
when you see the kids are struggling, but they get the answer, then they start to kind of like back off. And now it's funny because you can see my kids when students are asking questions, everybody just kind of look and wait. And they're like, no, she's struggling. Don't tell her the answer. And then the student gets the
That's
answer. And I'm like,
awesome.
yay. And then we all have like a big celebration. But
Oh, that's
it's like,
so cool, Taylor.
it's really cool. Like they're learning. And, and I tell them now, y'all might not have it perfect right now. And I don't expect you to, but 7th grade and up, you guys are going to be like the perfect students. And your teacher's going to be like, oh my gosh, y'all are this. I say, because I'm planting your seed now, and you're going to have it grown as you grow into your senior year and college year. Y'all are be awesome students, and you're going to know how to learn. You're going to know how to research. You're going to know how to use your resources, everything. And that's what I see with blended learning.
I have as a team, I'm going to go off of what Taylor just said. I'm a team lead to 2 brand new teachers, first year and the second year teacher. And I'm watching them and hearing them. And I remember myself as a first year teacher, like you think they're going to get it by just regurgitating answers to them and telling them what to do. And it's like, and I'm watching and listening to them, and I'm like trying to tell them not to, like, just, there needs to be more wait time. Just stare at them with your mouth closed. It's like but because I'm noticing kids come up to me and I'm like, sometimes I'm just standing next to me. They're like, oh, I got it. And they can figure it out. But it's like, they come up to you like your mom, like I'm their mom. Like I'm gonna fix this.
Exactly. And that's what I do too. Like when they're struggling, I just go stand. And I just stand for them. Like, oh, I got it. I said, you just needed me to stand by you. Next person.
Yeah,
I know.
I've done that so often. It's like in your formulation of, like, you read something, you're like, oh wait, I don't get this. And while you're crafting the question to ask the teacher or the parent or whatever, you're like, oh wait, I get it now. You just have to like rework it in your head. And so by the time you make it to the teacher, it's like, oh, never mind, I don't need you. That's good. Okay, good. I'm glad you don't need me.
Yeah, that's always my response. Like, I'm so glad. Awesome. Way to go. Good job.
Yeah. And my teammates are exhausted teaching. I'm like, I'm walking in the hall laughing with my kids, and they're like, oh, that math lesson was terrible. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I hear that when they're like, when you hear the comments that the students make, like, she didn't explain this at all. I know, because I'm gonna let you get it. You know, I'm like, yeah, I didn't model one of those at the board. You're right, but I gave you all the tools that you need to answer that question. So that's always my response when I hear that kind of stuff. It's like,
yes, same with me. I love that response. Did you?
Like,
you remember when I said go read this page? Did y'all read it? And they go read it. Oh.
Yeah. Did you look at the notes? Oh, I didn't write them down. Oh, you didn't write them down. What are you going to do now?
Yes, that's my same reaction.
So we've kind of touched on this, but we'll go into more detail. How has this program changed you as either a student yourself or as a teacher? I know it's made me definitely more in tune with teachers today. I thought I had a grip on that a little bit because I'm not that far removed from being a student in the actual classroom myself. And then my husband's a 3rd grade teacher, so I hear his stories when he comes home. But it's definitely like opened my eyes into the wish list of a lot of teachers and why that wish list never seems to come true. And it's made me sad, but at the same time, I have hope. And so that's how it's changed me. And as a student, it's made me more aware. I was always like, while I love to learn, I was always a student that's like, okay, this is what the rubric says. This is what the teacher's going to get. Like I knew how to play the game. I know how to play the game. And sometimes that's the key to traditional school setting is just, well, okay, I know what this teacher expects of me, so that's what I'm going to do. And that's a different type of learning, I think, that it is important to have. Like it's street smarts, but I think not every kid has that, and so that's not fair. And so this course has made me realize, like, there is no game to play. Like this is on you. And that was, like Desiree said, it was jarring at first as a student who's used to knowing what teachers want and giving them that. It's like, oh, you just want me to be me. I don't know who I am.
feel
think
like
that, go ahead, Margie.
as a learner, I remember the first class I took this summer and reading Dr. H's story about how he learned, and I was exactly like, pretty much just like him. Like, I learned by messing up and not, like in math class, give me the answer to the problem and then I'm going to go backwards and figure it out, because I could not watch the teacher work through the problems.
Mhm.
But as a teacher, this program has changed me, and I almost feel guilty because it's year 15 and I finally have turned into I've been more in tune to listening to the kids when it's chaos in my room
Mhm.
and letting them work with partners, but I'm listening to their conversations and I'm like, oh my God, these kids are learning so much more right now than they were 10 years ago as a teacher. Like, I shouldn't feel guilty. I don't have regrets, but I just wish I wish everybody could know what we're going, like learning, like, because listening to the kids and letting them work in partners and letting your room be a little bit actually really chaotic, controlled chaos, I guess. Like, I feel like that's so important right now.
Yeah. And I think that
wish
speaks to your point earlier about why so many district and administrators are against blended learning type flipped classrooms versus station rotation classrooms, is because when they go do their walks, they don't want to walk into a classroom that looks chaotic. Like, that's they want the structure, the order, and that's hard. It's hard to grasp that, like, oh no, learning is happening in this chaos. It's good learning. It just doesn't look like learning you're used to.
Yeah, this messy classroom with, like, my classroom is a little messy, but it is. There's a lot of learning going on.
That's awesome.
That for me, like, when I was stay-at-home mom about 10 years ago, gosh, has it really been that long? Probably not quite that long, but anyway, my son was in kindergarten and I was stay-at-home mom. And so I went to his kindergarten classroom as a room parent, and I walked in and this kindergarten teacher had, I'm not kidding you, 24 kindergartners doing station rotation, using technology in one corner to listen to a CD as they read along with a book, using another corner as like a self-read station. And then she had like 2 or 3 activities, and the interventionist was like coming in and pulling kids out, but she was just another station. And like, and it was like all this was happening. And I was like, if she can do this with 24 5-year-olds, I'm doing this in my high school classroom. And then, so when I came back to the classroom, I was like, nope, that's it. We're going. And so like now I've got 2 or 3 activities happening at any given time. And I'm like, is it a little louder? Yeah, it's a little louder. Is it always as clean and orderly as? No, it's not as clean and orderly. Do they think I'm crazy? Yeah, probably. But I'm okay with that. And I think that, like, because like you said, like once you see it happen and once you allow it to happen in your classroom and you see that it's okay, it just, for me personally, it took a lot of stressor off my plate, because I was always like, did I say this little thing? Did I say that little thing? Did I explain it the same way to every kid who asked? And when the kids are the ones responsible for the doing and the learning, it frees you up to just be there and just support them, and in a way that you don't really get to do when you're the sage on the stage. And I think that that's the biggest battle that I am going to face, like with getting people on board with this in my district, is that the high school classrooms are pretty, ducks in a row all across the building. And so like opening my door and having people come in and see my crazy, I know it's good for them. And I see the results of it because I've been willing to do it for as long as I have. But getting other people on board with that, I think is the big thing. And I think that that's kind of where my implementation plan is going, is like, hey, if you'll just try it just a little bit, just try a little bit, you're going to find it's not as bad as you think it is, And so it's getting them to drink, just a little bit of the juice. So, but yeah, I love it. Like when you said, like, you're more hands off than ever before, but your kids are learning more than ever before. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
I can say when I first, I knew I wanted to go back to school because I like learning and, I like growth mindset. But when I first started, applied digital learning, I wasn't on board with digital learning. I wasn't. I'm going to be honest. I was more traditional. Student listen to the teacher, student write down what teacher is saying, you study, you pass, go on to the next thing. But as I continue working, I started realizing I was more stressed. And for some reason, I'm just not used to having 20 some students in my classroom anymore ever since COVID. The last class that I had last year, I only had 6 students and I loved it. But now this year I have a full class. So now it's like, I had so much growth with those 6 students, and it was because they were small groups. So how can I get those same results in a group of 20? And the thing is, you gotta let that. Some things I just had to tell myself, you cannot control everybody's learning at the same time. It's not gonna happen. It's not, because everybody's on different levels. And I noticed when I would try to do whole group teaching, my higher kids, you can see it in their face, they were just so bored. So I was like, I can't continue this way. I can't continue seeing the boredom on a student's face, and then seeing my lower students engaged but not engaged, and then my middle people are just kind of like floating here and there. So I had to step back. And so this course really helps me kind of organize my blended learning. It really does, because the questions that they're asking me, the projects that they're telling me to do, it's like I can really implement it at the same time that I'm actually working. And with myself being a student, I'm used to a teacher teaching me, but guess what? None of my teachers teach me in my own course. So how can I be the teacher teaching my students? So I feel what they feel. Like Desiree say, and Margie said, I feel what my students feel. I don't have a teacher in front of me teaching. If I don't understand something that I'm reading in our books, or something that I'm listening to, I go to YouTube. And guess what? There are several people on YouTube that explain it way better. If I don't like reading, because I don't like reading, I go to the book and see if there's an audio version of it. And I tell that to my kids now. I'm like, y'all, I'm a math teacher. You think I like words? No, but I'm gonna find a video that's gonna read it for me, or that's gonna explain it to me in a way that I understand. And if I can do it, you definitely could do it, because you have more resources than me. So that's just kind of how I look at it. And it's crazy because on top of getting into a master's class, I also signed up for a STEM cohort that focus on inquiry in classes and classrooms, and building inquiry with your students. And that's what I do all year. That's what I'm doing, building that inquiry by giving you the resources, asking you those questions. And even with myself as a student, I'm building my teachers are making me build the inquiry by asking me questions and giving me resources and telling me, well, what do you feel about this? It's just a cycle. It's going on. We're all in this little world together, and it is what it is now. It's going to be blended learning. Like, we all have to get on board. And like Desiree say, it is chaotic. And Desiree, you have doors. In our school, we don't have doors. We don't have doors. We're open concept. And I am the first classroom in the hallway. We have a hallway door, but I'm the first classroom. And I tell my kids all the time, like, I know you guys are learning, but keep it down. But it is chaotic. It's when I walk and see other people's classrooms and everybody's class is all nice and tamed and everybody's listening, I just feel bad, because it's like, my class is not like that, but they are learning. And I see it in the grades. The grades are like, when I was teaching and when the students are learning by themselves, they're going like this. So it's like they're doing just as good as if I was teaching. So I'm not losing there. They're gaining, and that's why I continue to do it, because I'm not seeing a drop in anything.
Right.
All I see is
Right.
the kids are still learning. The kids are more engaged. The grades are still there. They're still hitting their targets. It's just all positives for me. And even with my partner watching me, she even comes to me and says, I watch you and I think I'm just going to have to, step away from my students and focus on my small groups. I'm like, yeah, girl. I said,
Mhm.
yeah,
Do it.
because it's just too much. Like, especially with the kids that we are getting now, they're way lower than our kids. And we
Mhm.
tell our kids all the time, you guys are well capable, way well above knowing how to read and follow directions and do
Right.
an activity. You guys can do this. These kids that are coming in, they don't know. We literally have to be with them. It's a language barrier and they really just don't know. So
Mhm.
they feel the pressure now, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
It's really funny.
go ahead, Desiree.
I just had this. It's funny.
We've been doing so good not cutting each other off.
I know, right?
You go. I'm gonna
Good.
shut up.
Okay. So just like what you were saying, Taylor, I had this conversation with this guy at work who is, I love him to death, totally old school, right? Like totally old school. And he and I were having this conversation. I brought up, and like we brought up blended learning, and it was getting like heated, like it was good. And I just pulled back for a minute and I was listening to what he was saying, and I was like, do you have like a favorite student to teach? I'm like, not a name, just, and he was like, well, there are these kids that we have that are like the unicorns that just love to learn, right? They want to learn, they're intrinsically motivated, they're going to do whatever it takes to learn and go beyond that because they want to learn. And then you have the kids that are going to just be, your kids who are going to do what needs to get done to get the grade that they want, and then they're moving on. And he kind of scaled it through the different things that we see, and then you got the kids that are unmotivated, distractors in class, and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh well, this is a different viewpoint than I have on the world, but okay. And so then, but then I just paused and I asked him a question, and I said, okay, so can I tell you something? I'm like, this is what I believe about teaching. And I was like, I believe that all kids can be a unicorn. And I just stopped right there. And he's like, and that kind of effectively ended the conversation because he didn't really have a comeback to that. And I was like, all kids are unicorns. And I think that like that's what blended learning and TOVA and the learning environment, the acronym's not in my brain right now, CSLE. I think when you put all of those things together, you're transforming kids into unicorns, right? You're taking them from robots who just mimic what they've been shown to do for their whole lives, which would be like, in my case, that was the instruction that I had as a kid. And you're transforming them into these self-motivated, self-directed learners who now know what to do with all the resources at their fingertips, who now know that I don't know. And I'm like, oh, I don't know that well enough yet. And I need to find what I need to find, to learn or whatever. And so I just really feel like that's what blended learning has really opened up in my classroom, is like the opportunity to help those kids find that part of themselves, and grow and learn in those skills. It's been a big part for me to watch the kids do that. And I think that having those conversations with my colleagues to say, well, what if you could make all your kids be unicorns? Like it just drops that little thought bucket in for them. So.
Yeah, to both of your points, my company has spent so long trying to be everything to everybody because of course we need to make money. So we need to be able to go to as many districts as possible and get them to buy our program. And this ranges, and it's already difficult enough to be everything to everybody when you're selling to multiple states. When you're selling to different teacher levels, you have first year teachers and you have 25-year teachers. It's hard to build into a program what the perfect that teacher would want. And so we have things like teacher scripting, where this is what you should say while you're teaching this page. And then we have some things where it's just like, here's an activity, no direction on what the teacher does with it. And that's gotten us in trouble sometimes because some teachers are like, why are you telling me how to teach, like what to say when I teach this? I know what to say when I teach this. But then we have some teachers who are like, I don't know what to do with this component. Why didn't you give me any instruction about this? And to me, that's what makes blended learning so interesting is we can provide all of the resources. We can provide a guide for like, this is how we would model our perfect blended learning classroom using all of these resources we're giving you. But it's really your choice on how you use all of this. And when a teacher is given choice, to me, that opens them up, and you, all three of you are testaments to this. It opens you up to be willing to give your kids choice. If you feel like you have ownership in how you're teaching them, you're going to let them have ownership in how they learn. And if you have a voice in what curriculum is being taught, your kids are going to be okay with giving their voice about when something doesn't make sense, when they don't like a particular resource. And I just think all of that is so important. And blended learning to me is an amazing catalyst for making all of that happen. So.
And it's so funny that you mentioned that, Alyssa, because my teacher, our district used HMH. So just hearing the reading teachers talk about each month, oh, they scripted this. Oh, I have to say this and this and this.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of those teachers are a little bit stressed.
Yeah.
But my partner, I can really say that she does try to do blended learning with the whole curriculum. And I think that if y'all's company do add the blended learning portion, just like you said, if I'm a new teacher and I don't know what I'm teaching, how I'm teaching, but if I have a guide, like something like HMH, where at this point I'm only teaching 6 students, you know how like stress-free that would be? Like I don't have to teach the whole class, just only 6 kids. What? Yes, I can do this. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be totally like cool.
I like to hear that.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think we're at time. I think we've touched on a lot of things. Does anybody have any
No, for
final
sure.
thoughts about blended learning or ADL or CSLE plus COVA or anything like that?
Blended learn is the way to go.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Yep.
Wave
Student
of the
choice. Student choice.
future.
Yeah.
Yes. But that's
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I can't wait to hear and see everybody's implementation plans get implemented. And I'm sure you will all hear if mine works.
Yeah.
I hope we do.
If not, we're all gonna be there to make it work.
I hope it
I
does.
will-
I'm gonna try and push you into my district. Like, we got to get her company.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
Like,
will,
where
we
are all
will
these
make it
teachers
happen.
coming from? Alessa. Alessa just recruited a whole
Right?
Yeah.
class.
And then I'm gonna
of
come work for y'all.
teachers ready for digital learning.
We're going to make it happen,
Love it.
y'all. We're going to make it happen.
We're
Like
gonna change
Dr.
the
H
world.
says, that's right. That's what I was going to say.
Right. Yeah.
Dr. H says, we're going to change the world.
Yay.
All right. This was awesome.
right.
Thanks, guys.
All
right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.